We remember the spectacle, those pulse-pounding moments when cinema defies logic, cars flipping mid-air, cities crumbling, heroes walking through fire. Action films are the crown jewels of the blockbuster era. They're loud, lavish, and built to conquer the box office. But what if one of those explosions happened in the boardroom? Behind the curtain of choreographed chaos lies a different kind of tension. Budget sheets bleeding red, producers pulling their hair out, and entire studios holding their breath for opening weekend. Because sometimes, it takes just one movie to push a billion-dollar empire to the edge. Some of these films were doomed from the start. Others were passion projects gone rogue. But they all share one thing: the terrifying ability to bankrupt the very machine that created them. Studios gambled on big stars, cutting-edge effects, and global appeal. But ambition has a price. And when things go wrong, they go spectacularly wrong, taking with them careers, reputations, and decades of stability. Today, we're peeling back the gold-plated surface of Hollywood to reveal the cracks underneath. These are the cautionary tales hidden in plain sight films you may have watched without knowing they nearly erased the logos that made them. Let's take a deep breath and dive into 15 action movies that almost took down the studios behind them. Some fell quietly, others went down in flames. Fact has shown. Cutthroat Island, 1995. The film that sank its ship and studio. It aimed to revive a genre. Instead, it buried the studio that dared to believe in it. Cutthroat Island was released in 1995 as a swashbuckling pirate epic starring Geena Davis and helmed by her then-husband, director Renny Harlin. Carolco Pictures, once home to hits like Terminator 2 and Rambo, placed its final bet on this film, hoping to launch a new franchise. But from the beginning, the production was cursed. Harlan fired the male lead halfway through prep. Cost overruns ballooned past $100 million. Sets were destroyed by bad weather. The script went through endless rewrites, and with every delay, Carolco's financial lifeline frayed thinner. Geena Davis trained in fencing, did her own stunts, and gave it everything she had. But the ship she was steering had already hit the reef. When Cutthroat Island finally limped into theaters, it was met with silence. It grossed a humiliating $10 million domestically, instantly becoming one of the biggest box office disasters in history. Carolco didn't survive the blow. The studio filed for bankruptcy weeks later, its vaults emptied by a single film. The dream was of gold and glory. The reality was ruin. But this was only the first casualty in a long line of cinematic gambles gone wrong. Fact hash 2. Heaven's Gate, 1980. When vision became hubris. The 1,970 seconds had crowned United Artists as Hollywood's creative haven. But one film, one unchecked vision, would bring it crashing down. Riding high after his Oscar-winning The Deer Hunter, director Michael Cimino was given full control over Heaven's Gate, an epic western he promised would redefine the genre. What followed was a descent into artistic obsession. Cimino demanded perfection. He filmed and refilmed entire sequences. Extras were held for hours in freezing Wyoming conditions. A shooting schedule of months stretched into nearly a year. The budget exploded from $11 million to over $44 million. When the film finally premiered in 1980, it ran nearly 4 hours. Critics recoiled. Audiences didn't show up. United Artists rushed out a shortened version, but the damage was irreversible. Heaven's Gate earned back just a fraction of its cost. And with that, the studio once trusted by filmmakers like Kubrick and Woody Allen was sold off and dissolved. A reputation built over decades was wiped away in one swing. In later years, some tried to call it a misunderstood masterpiece. But the truth remains, it was the film that cost United Artists its life. And in Hollywood, art without limits is a beautiful way to go broke. Fact hash 3. The 13th Warrior, 1999. The rewrite that cost $100 million. Even Disney can lose its nerve. And The 13th Warrior is proof. Based on Michael Crichton's reimagining of Beowulf, this medieval action thriller starred Antonio Banderas as an outsider joining a tribe of Norse warriors. The premise had teeth. The cast was solid, but from the start, the execution faltered. After poor test screenings, Disney panicked. Director John McTiernan was quietly pushed aside. Crichton himself stepped in to reshoot large sections of the film. The title changed, so did the tone. So did the budget, skyrocketing to $160 million. But all the editing in the world couldn't salvage a story the studio no longer believed in. Marketing was minimal, release dates were shifted, and when The 13th Warrior finally opened, it vanished almost instantly, grossing just $61 million globally. Industry insiders pegged the loss near $100 million. For a studio like Disney, the hit wasn't fatal, but it left scars. The project disappeared from promotion cycles, home video campaigns, even internal retrospectives. It's a film they'd rather forget, and that tells you everything. Fact #4. Waterworld 1995. A studio's ocean-sized risk. It was meant to be legendary. Instead, it became the punchline of an entire era. Universal Pictures greenlit Waterworld with dreams of creating an aquatic epic like nothing seen before. Kevin Costner, riding high from Dances with Wolves, produced and starred, playing a lone drifter navigating a flooded future Earth. But the sea is no place for cost control. Filming took place off the coast of Hawaii, where storms wrecked sets and forced massive rebuilds. Tensions between Costner and director Kevin Reynolds boiled over. The budget, originally set at $100 million, surged to $175 million, making it the most expensive film ever made at the time. Critics and media circled like sharks. The nickname Fish Tar began to stick. All eyes turned to opening weekend, not to celebrate success, but to watch a ship sink. Waterworld debuted to lukewarm numbers in the US, barely crossing $80 million. Its international earnings eventually pushed it into modest profitability, but the damage was already done. Universal survived, but only just. The experience left them bruised, their appetite for mega budgets temporarily drowned. The movie wasn't a total failure, but it taught Hollywood a brutal lesson. When you film on water, you either float or you flood. Fact #5. John Carter, 2012. The franchise that died before it lived. It had all the makings of a cinematic empire. Instead, John Carter became the blueprint for how to lose $200 million. Disney hoped to launch a new tentpole based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoom series, a sprawling sci-fi saga that inspired generations of filmmakers. But timing is everything, and this one arrived decades too late. Director Andrew Stanton, a genius in the world of animation, struggled to adapt his Pixar storytelling style to live action. Rewrites, reshoots, and creative control battles sent costs soaring to $250 million. Then came the marketing misfire. Dropping of Mars from the title in a bid to seem more accessible, Disney instead left audiences confused. When John Carter hit theaters, it was met with indifference. The visuals impressed, but the story didn't connect. It grossed just $73 million domestically. Disney later reported one of the largest write-downs in its history. The executive who greenlit the project stepped down soon after. There was no merchandise frenzy, no sequel talk, no fandom revival, just silence, and a crater where a franchise was supposed to be. Fact #6. The Lone Ranger, 2013. A western nobody wanted to ride. Once upon a time, Johnny Depp could do no wrong, but even he couldn't save this train wreck. The Lone Ranger reunited the Pirates of the Caribbean team, with Gore Verbinski directing and Depp in the role of Tonto. Disney envisioned it as a grand return to westerns, with trains, explosions, and supernatural flair. Then the budget exploded, too. Originally set at $130 million, costs ballooned past $225 million, driven by elaborate sets, delays, and Verbinski's insistence on practical effects, including building full-scale trains that actually ran. Disney, alarmed, briefly shut down production. It resumed only after promises of cost-cutting promises that were quietly broken. Critics slammed the final product as tonally chaotic. Depp's portrayal was called culturally tone-deaf. The marketing felt unsure of what story it was telling. The result? A weak $89 million US box office return, and global numbers that couldn't save it. Disney recorded a $190 million loss, shelved any franchise potential, and quietly walked away. For a film about justice and redemption, The Lone Ranger offered neither, only an expensive reminder. Not every legend should be resurrected. Fact #7. Speed Racer, 2008. A vision too bold, too soon. It was fast, it was loud, and it was like nothing audiences had ever seen. When the Wachowskis set out to adapt the anime Speed Racer, they weren't just making a movie, they were building a sensory overload. Warner Brothers gave them the freedom and a budget of $120 million to execute their vision. What they got back was something no one knew how to sell. The film looked like a Technicolor fever dream, blurring lines between animation and live action. Neon tracks, digital backdrops, zero restraint, It was art, not entertainment, at least not in the conventional sense. Audiences were stunned, but not in a good way. Critics couldn't decide if it was brilliant or unbearable. The marketing, targeting kids, misread the tone entirely. And when Speed Racer hit theaters, it sputtered. Just $18 million opening weekend, barely $93 million worldwide. Warner Brothers had expected a franchise. Instead, they got a cautionary tale. Years later, the film would gain cult appreciation for its innovation. But in 2008, it was just another box office ghost one. The studio didn't know how to grieve. Sometimes the future arrives too early, and it crashes right through the present. Fact Hashite, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, 2001, the animation that killed the dream. It was supposed to change cinema. Instead, it closed a studio. Final Fantasy. The Spirits Within came from the minds behind one of gaming's most beloved franchises. Backed by Columbia Pictures, the film set out to be the first photorealistic CGI feature with digital actors so lifelike they could replace the real thing. 4 years of development. A $137 million budget, motion capture suits, render farms, and endless refinement. But something critical got lost in the code. The story lacked emotion. The characters, though beautiful, felt lifeless. Audiences praised the visuals but didn't care what happened on screen. The film made just $85 million worldwide. The fallout was swift. Square Pictures, the animation studio behind the project, was shuttered. The company's planned merger with Enix was delayed. Sakaguchi, the creative force behind it all, resigned. The industry took note. Visual realism means nothing if the heart isn't beating. And Square's dream of digital immortality died with its first and last feature. Fact #9. Mars Needs Moms, 2011. The flop Disney erased. It was meant to be a heartfelt story about love and courage. Instead, it became one of the most expensive missteps in animation history. Mars Needs Moms, produced by Robert Zemeckis' Image Movers Digital, used cutting-edge motion capture to tell the story of a boy rescuing his mom from Martians. The technology was advanced, but the result sat squarely in the uncanny valley. The characters looked human, but not enough. Kids were unnerved. Adults were disinterested. The film cost Disney $150 million, but opened to a mere $6.9 million in its first weekend. Total earnings? Just $39 million worldwide. Disney acted quickly. The studio behind the film was shut down. Plans for future motion capture projects were scrapped, and Mars Needs Moms was quietly pushed into the vault, seldom referenced, never celebrated. You won't see it on Disney Plus banners. You won't hear executives speak its name. It's the film Disney wants you to forget, because forgetting costs less than remembering. Fact Hassan Zero. The Adventures of Pluto Nash, 2002. A silence worth $100 million. Sometimes the loudest failures make no sound at all. Warner Brothers released The Adventures of Pluto Nash in 2002 with minimal noise, and for good reason. The sci-fi comedy starred Eddie Murphy as a nightclub owner on the moon, in a world where laughs were scarce and logic even scarcer. Originally filmed in 2000, the studio delayed its release for nearly 2 years. Behind the scenes, no one had faith in the final product. Reshoots didn't help. The tone was erratic, the jokes fell flat. Even Murphy, known for his charisma, kept a noticeable distance during promotion if he showed up at all. With a bloated $100 million budget, Pluto Nash opened to just over $2 million. Its total worldwide take? $7.1 million, one of the most catastrophic returns in studio history. The studio pulled the film from theaters after 2 weeks. No streaming push, no home video campaign. It was swept under the rug like radioactive waste. No controversy, no outrage, just disappearance. Sometimes the worst failures aren't screamed about, they're buried in silence. Fact Hassanon, Sahara, 2005. When the real treasure was the budget scandal, buried treasure, try buried accounting records. Sahara was supposed to kick off a globe-trotting adventure series based on Clive Cussler's best-selling novel and starring Matthew McConaughey and Penelope Cruz. It had all the makings of a blockbuster franchise. Instead, it became a financial black hole with an action movie wrapped around it. Shot across multiple countries with lavish set pieces and rewrites mid-shoot, the production costs spiraled to over $160 million. Internal documents later revealed wild spending, chartered private jets, massive bribes to foreign officials, and unchecked expense accounts. The movie made a decent, showing $119 million worldwide, but nowhere near what it needed to break even. Worse, a legal war erupted between Cussler and the producers over script approval. Accusations flew. Millions were spent on court battles. The franchise was dead before the dust settled. Sahara was a story about hunting ancient riches. Ironically, the only thing uncovered was how easily Hollywood loses track of its own gold. Fact Hasson 2. Stealth, 2005. AI-powered, studio-destroying misfire. Sony thought they had the next Top Gun. What they got was an AI-fueled nosedive. Stealth followed 3 elite pilots testing a next-generation fighter jet controlled by artificial intelligence. Jamie Foxx, Jessica Biel, and Josh Lucas rounded out the cast. The special effects were sleek, the jet looked cool, but the movie had no pulse. The $135 million production delivered visual spectacle without soul. The plot felt mechanical. The characters, weightless. Critics didn't hold back. Audiences didn't show up. The film limped to a $76 million global gross. Sony took a bath on the losses and quietly shelved any plans for sequels or merchandise. Fox had just won an Oscar. Biel was on the rise. But Stealth grounded all momentum for everyone involved. In the age of smart machines, Stealth was proof that artificial doesn't always mean intelligent. Fact Hasson 3. 47 Ronin, 2013. A cultural crossroads that went nowhere. Universal hoped to make history. What they made instead was a financial rift that no sword could mend. 47 Ronin was an ambitious fusion of East and West, a reimagining of Japan's most enduring legend, led by Keanu Reeves and heavy CGI. But where honor guided the warriors on screen, chaos ruled behind the scenes. The project was plagued by indecision. Was it a faithful period piece or a fantasy epic? Neither, it turned out. First-time director Carl Rinch reportedly lost control early in production. Reshoots were mandated. Reeves' role was expanded in post to satisfy nervous executives. The budget quietly soared past $225 million, but no amount of re-editing could unify its fractured identity. Critics dismissed it. Japanese audiences felt misrepresented. Western viewers were confused, and Universal, left with a loss of over $100 million and a franchise dream reduced to dust. 47 Ronin aimed to bridge two worlds. Instead, it fell between them and never got back up. Fact Hasson 4. The Alamo, 2004. A history lesson Hollywood paid for in blood. Some stories are too sacred to get wrong. Disney's The Alamo set out to be an unflinching retelling of the legendary battle, stripped of romanticism and soaked in realism. But after parting ways with original director Ron Howard over budget concerns, the project shifted to John Lee Hancock, who delivered a darker, slower version of the tale. It wasn't what Disney wanted, or what audiences expected. The film carried a staggering $107 million price tag, yet opened with a whisper. Released in spring, not award season, it was met with lukewarm reviews and even cooler box office receipts. Final U.S. Total, $25 million. Foreign markets didn't care. Disney absorbed a $146 million write-down. Plans for future historical dramas were shelved indefinitely. And The Alamo, meant to memorialize sacrifice, instead became a silent reminder of corporate miscalculation. Hollywood can rewrite history, but it still has to pay for it. ACT Hasson 5, Battlefield Earth, 2000. The sci-fi that exploded everything but the box office. Some movies are disasters, others are detonation. Battlefield Earth was born from John Travolta's personal devotion to the works of L. Ron Hubbard. Backed by Franchise Pictures, it was positioned as the first chapter in a sweeping space saga. Instead, it delivered one of the most infamous meltdowns in cinema history. The film's problems were endless. Bizarre camera angles, incoherent storytelling, performances that bordered on parody. But the biggest scandal wasn't on screen, it was in the books. Franchise Pictures was later found to have inflated the film's budget, falsely reporting it as $44 million when it was closer to $75 million. When Battlefield Earth flopped, earning just $29 million, a major fraud lawsuit followed. Franchise lost, the company dissolved, Travolta's reputation suffered, the planned sequels vanished, and the movie was mocked into legend. Battlefield Earth didn't just fail, it scorched the earth it stood on and erased the studio with it. Bonus fact, Supernova 2000, a film so broken, no one claimed it. Some films are lost. Supernova was abandoned. It began as a low-concept, high-style sci-fi thriller, a deep space medical rescue gone wrong, a sleek genre piece with potential. MGM had modest hopes. They hired Walter Hill, a director known for tough, lean storytelling. Then, everything fell apart. Creative clashes erupted early. Hill walked. MGM brought in Jack Shoulder to fix what he could. Still dissatisfied, the studio turned to an unexpected third party, Francis Ford Coppola, editing from his home studio, trying to salvage a movie that never had a center. What emerged was a stitched-together hybrid of ideas, different tones, contradictory visuals, multiple hands on the same steering wheel. The final cut was such a mismatch that Walter Hill had his name removed from the credits, replaced by the infamous pseudonym Thomas Lee. Supernova cost over $60 million. It earned $14 million. There was no scandal, no controversy, just quiet failure. The kind that leaves no fingerprints because no one wanted to be associated with it in the first place. Even Coppola refused to discuss his involvement. Even the studio tried to pretend it was someone else's mistake. Supernova isn't just a bad film. It's the cinematic version of a voicemail you wish you never left. Which one of these films shocked you the most? Was it the bloated epics that burned too bright, or the quiet failures Hollywood tried to erase from memory? Some gambled on vision, others collapsed under ego, but all of them left scars that studios still carry today. So tell us if you had to bet on one of these again. Would you, or would you walk away? Because in this town, the real action doesn't always happen on screen. Sometimes, it's the budgets that bleed.